सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः.
Yes, This song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon, and we are recording this on July 10th of 2014. And, wow, you know, I say this way too often, Ramon, but man, time is flying by. I mean, here we are in July already of 2014, and it seems like yesterday we were waiting for the big 2012 to show up. And I don't know what happened the last year and a half. I honestly don't. It just flew by. Yeah. I mean, things are moving so fast. People are growing so fast. Things in the world are happening so fast. You know, it's a wonder that we are able to make any sense of, or heads or tails of what's going on with us personally, internally. I mean, you know, when I sit back and look at how much I've grown in the last 10 years, or even I'll put it into the scope of just how long we've been doing the radio show, the last 3.5 years. I look at how much I've grown in that period of time, and I just go, oh my word, there's been so much that's happened, and so many things have, so much growth has happened, and I don't know how I could chunk all of that into that 3.5 year time span. But then on the other hand, it's like, wow, where did it's I don't know. The time is a fickle thing, I'll tell you what. It's just freaking bizarre. So anyways, here in the Western Washington, it has absolutely been gorgeous here this last week, and I have been really loving it. My garden has really been loving it. I'm about ready I'm going to harvest all my peas this weekend, and it looks like I'm going to be able to put in 20 to 30 pints of peas this year. So I will have peas on the stove this winter. And my tomatoes are, oh my God, my tomatoes, I got a tomato plant out there, Ramon, that's almost as tall as I am now.
Wow, that's fast.
Yeah, yeah, it's...
I actually, excuse me, this week I picked the blueberries. I had some birds that wanted my blueberries, so I picked them a little early. And actually really good taste. I'm really glad I brought the plant.
I love this time of the year because I'm eating so much stuff out of my garden right now. I mean, my lettuce and the peas now coming on, and I've been munching on strawberries every time I go out to the garden. So,
you're growing strawberries too?
Oh yeah, I got one end of the garden is my strawberry patch, and I've got about I guess it's like 5 foot by 15 foot strawberry patch, and I probably get a quart a week out of them, a quart of strawberries a week out of them, which is plenty for me.
That's a lot.
And this is only their third year, so they are just now really starting to produce real well. So
it's funny because here strawberry season it's between January and May. And I always find it strange that in America it's a different time of season.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway. So, anything you want to cover before we get into our show tonight, Ramon?
No, let's just get into it.
Yeah. We've got Dr. Dream and Laura Eisenhower with us tonight, and I'm sure that all of our audience out there are quite familiar with these two, but if you are not, I'll let you know that they've been doing some amazing work out there on the world stage. They are oh geez, what's the word I'm looking for? They prompt and initiate and They spur the mind, the thought, the heart, the soul, the body into greater and higher levels of awareness, consciousness, vibration, resonance, frequency, aroma. I love their aromatherapy stuff. They've just absolutely fascinating stuff there. They've got a few websites that you can refer to. We've got touroflove.com, cosmicgaiasophia.com, and their radio show website, awakenthedreamradio.com. And welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio, Laura and Dr. Dream. Pleasure to have you again.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
And so you guys know I just have a special place in my heart for the two of you. I just resonate so much with the work that you're doing out there, and I'm really excited about this upcoming retreat that you have at the end of this month up there at the East City Ranch, and I'm really looking forward to that. And so I'm going to throw a plug out there for everybody out there that maybe in the Northwest or looking for some place to travel to at the end of this month. Laura and Dr. Dream are doing a retreat at East City Ranch on the 26th and the 27th of this month. So if you guys are interested, contact eastcityreservations@gmail.com. And Nate and Jenna and the crew over there will hook you up with all the info. Wow. So
can someone teleport me over?
Yeah. I'm going to get right on that, Ramon. So, so much stuff's happening on the planet right now, and I know that my focus has I've got several irons in the fire as far as primary focuses of the life of Tom. And number one, and always number one with me, is getting that inner self balanced out, and on making sure that I'm doing what's right for Tom initially. But when I look out onto the world stage, I see that there is so many distractions out there and so much shadow, for lack of a better term, that seems to be rearing its head right now in our time, and it seems to have been intensifying this year. I'm curious if both of you have noticed that a certain intensification of the shadow play, shall we say, out there in the world.
Yeah, I definitely think so. We've been dealing with major activations of the Cardinal Grand Cross since mid-April, and this pretty much is going to continue on and off till 2015, pretty much all the way through the year. And so it's like it's a huge activation. It's all about the Pluto-Uranus square, particularly, and how it hits up against Mars and Jupiter. And Uranus and Pluto are very dynamic because Uranus is all about great awakening, universal truths, and the things that help us to be very true to who we are. And Pluto's all about death, rebirth, and alchemy. So when you put these two forces together, it's like we're really going to awaken with these forces, because if we're having epiphanies and breakthroughs and getting in touch with universal truth, and we're able to release and transform and let go of the old and embrace the new and create alchemy in our lives, that's a big threat to the powers that want to be out there. And so they're going to dump everything they possibly can on us to keep us from being able to take advantage of what's available. And a lot of crises can happen, which are a part of this process, but people can easily lose themselves to perspectives that allow entities in, allow a lot of lower vibrations in, that make us very linked to these control mechanisms, which also make us very vulnerable to the toxins and the chemtrails and everything that's happening around us, to the point of almost defeating ourselves with our own inability to embrace the fact that a lot is being activated in us to rise above it. So we want to keep moving in that direction, but there has been an amped up level of energy, I think, through invisible frequency weaponry against us, and also in the media and in the news. But the thing is, I only watch alternative news, so I'm seeing the Pope going and being held accountable for satanic rituals versus, the Pope's just taking a break, in mainstream news that we see. I don't look at the mainstream news, but enough to see the contrast of what's happening underneath the scenes that's being exposed compared to how much this facade is still holding on for dear life, while there's actual things that they're having to make excuses for these individuals that are being held accountable right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, That kind of reminds me, I saw this thing for Wimbledon, and they had just so many chemtrails in the background, you know, to kind of get people used to seeing it. And I'm noticing it more and more on, you know, just regular TV shows where they'll have the chemtrails in the back. And I always have to have like a, you know, WTF moment.
Right.
I think at this point, it's in a lot of places, it's hard to photograph or film skies and not catch the chemtrails.
Right. You know, there seems to be a dividing line that is becoming more pronounced in the population, and as far as people burying their head deeper in the sand and other people pulling their heads out and shaking the sand off. I mean, it just seems really, really pronounced now. As I don't know, have you noticed that yourselves?
I've noticed it. I mean, it's kind of like just on the etheric level, we're being asked, you know, to really solidify what our choice is. And I see what you're talking about. I see people, I mean, almost literally like just burrowing their heads in even deeper, wherever their head happened to be burrowed in. And it bugs the hell out of me, you know. And yet then I realized that, like, this stuff shouldn't trigger me. I mean, all along, was it really going to be that everyone was going to make the choice to be expansive and to take that risk and face the fears and face everything that we face on this path of awakening and expanded consciousness? No way was everyone going to do that. So I've got to just kind of release myself from any of those thoughts and from feeling bad about it. We've all had the free will choice. And at this point, I mean, you know, of course, I'm here to help as many people as I can help. But at this point, I'm very focused on, you know, not projecting any of my stuff out and just being as aware and conscious of what's really happening inside of me as I've ever been. And you know, between the Cardinal Grand Cross and whatever the heck else has been going on, it's been incredibly challenging. In a good way.
if I can go back to the whole free will thing, there's certain things that seem like we were pushed at this moment in our life where we're at right now. Yeah, we made certain choices, but it's almost like whenever we tried to make a different choice, there was a 2x4 waiting for you. And so you just got sick and tired of getting hit by the 2x4. Like, okay, I'll go this way. Do you know what I mean? So it's, I don't know if being heard is the right word. That might be the wrong word, but it's, you know, me and Tom talk about that often, that we feel like we've been pushed this way.
I mean, it's interesting. A lot of times that 2x4 that you're talking about, I feel that that's my own 2x4, you know, just keeping me on track. I'm not so sure that 2x4 is outside of me, but it does become interesting when we talk about free will and we're being sprayed and we're being manipulated and we're being radiated and we're being nanoed up and everything like that. That concept of free will with all that behind-the-scenes manipulation becomes a little bit murky, doesn't it?
Exactly, and I was just about to go there. Great pickup. You know, but it seems like, you know, there's so many obstacles out there, and we have to take such extreme measures for our lives to be able to navigate through the crap that's out there right now. I mean, the things that we have to do to compensate for, or you know, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to go to the grocery store and go down an aisle and just grab something off the shelf and not worry about whether or not, you know, is this GMO? You know, what kind of crap have they pumped into this food? Do I have to, you know, I have to read the labels on everything now because I don't know what the hell I'm getting? I mean, it would be really nice not to have to go through all that crap just to go get a meal.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, at our house, it's just like some days I'm like, what the hell are we supposed to eat? And, you know, and even though, I mean, there are a lot of options, it's like, well, didn't we eat that like 2 nights ago? It's like the variety is starting to really narrow because, You know, it's unless you live next to the ultimate health food store and you got a lot of money to spend, the options are pretty limited. But I mean, obviously we make it through, but it's just the things that need to be checked. And if it doesn't have this one thing, it might have the other. It might be vegan, but it's got gluten. It might have it, you know, and it's like, And so we've just decided that we're going to be flexitarians. We're just going to pay attention to what really works in the moment, and maybe we'll cut corners here and there, but at the same time, it's a part of strengthening our immune system and being able to handle, you know, some of the difficulties that we're dealing with, because we have to kind of maybe find a balance at times. And I think being a little bit more flexible with ourselves and a little bit less stressed about it all gives us that extra energy to help with some of that flexibility and what it introduces into our system. But as long as the positives outweigh the negatives as far as what's entering, we can transmute it, you know?
Right. I was just going to ask about the transmutation process that we all possess. I mean, you know, I've seen the videos of the snake charmers, you know, the guys that get into that ecstatic state and will drink strychnine or let rattlesnakes bite them and absolutely have zero ill effects from it. And that's that's a pretty extreme case of that power of faith or the transmutation process that we all have access to. But and this is something that I've felt and known for myself for quite a while, is the ability of my body to, you know, to transmute any crap that comes into it and, you know, not have to worry about any of the ill effects that some people do experience from it.
We lose a lot of energy when we're stressed and anxious and in just panic about everything we eat and everything that's happening. And that energy could go towards transmutation. That's the thing. The more calm, the more centered, the more, you know, conscious we are and flexible we are. It's like, we're not wasting all that energy on stress, because that's the very energy we need for transmutation. Right. And people, you know, tend to take it all so seriously, and it's important, you know, to be concerned and to be on the ball, but not to the point of it draining you, because then the body is working overtime trying to handle all the stuff we can't control, like the spraying.
Right. I mean, I think I have a client I was speaking with yesterday who's got a skin condition that we're working on, and we're working on connecting the dots to see, you know, what this is really about. And my client asked me, you know, well, do you think it would be okay if I used one of these antibiotic creams or ointments or something just to get myself out of this incredible discomfort? And I said, absolutely. It's a tool. Use it as a tool. You don't have to put any trip around it that your body's absorbing these antibiotics and it's bad and it's undermining your immune system or anything like that. The only perspective in that moment that serves the moment is, thank goodness for this. Such a blessing that I'm able to put this on and get some relief. And then take that time when you're getting the relief to connect the dots some more, you know. But what happens then is people end up, you know, relieving the symptoms for years without ever going to the root cause of what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very true. Do you find that many times is there always an emotional link to whatever diseases or health problems we might have?
I think absolutely, unequivocally, yes, for sure. You know, no holds barred. That is an absolute fact in my mind and a part of my foundation belief. But it's when you think about it, you know, how could something just be, we're a whole system. And so if something is happening in one part of our system, it's still connected to the rest of the system. So to say that, oh, I have a physical something and I'm just going to address it as a physical something, says that then there's some way for us to just be a physical entity without being emotional, without being spiritual, without being everything multidimensional and everything else that we are. And there isn't. So the holistic perspective of everything is connected really allows us to get in there and figure things out. And I mean, I'm just a huge believer in that.
Absolutely, yeah. the way the whole system works together has fascinated me, especially in the last few years. When I've started, well, not when I started, but when digging into some of my old, that what they call our term shadow work, where I dig into really deep and looking at, and this has tailored more towards mental issues that I have had with, dealing with certain situations and seeking out the root causes for them, and then finding that, wow, my back doesn't hurt as bad now that I got that sorted out, and I've just noted that as I was getting rid of some of those old skeletons in the closet, so to say, that I seem to function better overall as a complete system. And
I think it really is the path. When you think about it, I mean, people look at it as a distraction, like, oh, I've got this symptom, it's getting in my way, or I haven't been feeling so good and it's getting in my way. And it's like, no, that's the path. Your body has wisdom and has a message for you, and it brings you closer inside your soul. It takes you into your journey. It takes you into your deepest soul longing. It takes you into your galactic consciousness as well, because all pain and afflictions remind us that a part of us is homesick. A part of us knows that we're made of much more than we are. So our sensitivities serve us. Our injuries, our symptoms are the things that give us the best messages and the best teachings of all, compared to anything else outside of us, just like experiences and events that we experience that show us something, and we're called in those moments to act upon it from a place of wisdom and from our higher consciousness. But very often we get a little bit diverted, but that teaches us something as well, because we see the cause and effect. And that's why we got to kind of drop, the mentality of worship or looking outside of ourselves, because it really takes away what the real experience is about. And if we could spend more time honoring the things that are less than comfortable, that seem like a problem or an issue or a symptom, and respect it and give it the time of day and really form a relationship to it, we become unbelievable healers, masters, avatars, whatever you want to say. But that is that path in my eyes.
Right, yeah. What about tools for, like, I suppose, if I say, I'll use the grocery store example again. So I'm going to the grocery store, and I know that I've got a process that I personally use on whether or not something is going to be is good for me or not, if there's a question in my mind. But what about some way to delineate something for yourself on I grab this melon off the shelf, and I want to know whether or not this is something that's going to be good for my body. Is there anything that you guys have developed for yourselves that help you to make that decision?
I think just really, for me, it's been just the journey in trusting my intuitive self. And I use a pendulum. I use my body as a pendulum or a barometer. I'm very aware of constriction. And so when I can leave the distraction and filter everything out enough and be so present, that works incredibly well for me. And just, we have all the answers, and so I see people in the grocery, we're in California, I see people in the grocery store holding a melon with a pendulum over it,
Oh, nice.
checking to see if that's the melon for them. I love it. I stand there sometimes and just watch, and even once I introduced myself to the person. I said, tell me, how does this work for you? To me, it would take an awfully long time to shop. I just don't have that kind of patience, and so I'm like, okay, look, that melon looks good. Let's grab that one, and I'm trusting my intuition of why I was drawn to that one, or once I felt it or whatever, as opposed to the other one, or kind of where my attention goes. And that's kind of how I live my entire life.
Yeah. Well, I know there is so much, the people that are tapped into the main media, the major media, there's so much fear that they're constantly pumped with. They're fed fear sells, right? So and I'm kind of pointing this and addressing this towards those listeners that may be out there that are just now getting onto the path and just now pulling, starting to wipe the sleep out of their eyes and going, okay, well, I really need to navigate in this world. and I want to apply some of these tools in my life and try to work with the inner self as I'm working with the outer world. Oh geez, where am I going with this? I guess what I'm trying to get at is maybe something for those newly awakened individuals out there, that to help them to maybe help them to alleviate the fears associated with interacting with the world and going to the grocery store, just going out to work, types of things that they can use or fall back on to try to bring themselves back to some kind of center.
So you're saying the person that's already awakened to what's truly happening, that feels very vulnerable to have to kind of work in the sort of human world that has been set up by...
Exactly.
Well,
exactly.
It's amazing, some of the transitions when people awaken. They first put society on a pedestal. They wanted to be the successful one. They competed with their friends and peers, got the diplomas, did everything right, figured that the latest show, the latest artist, and the latest movie's the coolest thing ever, and whatever's trendy is cool. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what is all that? And that's one type. And then, feeling like an absolute and total identity crisis, and feeling like what used to be an attachment and an identity is now, something that's harmful. And there's a little bit of trauma to move through, because it's like the carpet just got pulled from underneath you. And even if you didn't buy into the game, you're either an outsider and you identify with yourself as such. And all these different personas that we, create for ourselves to know who we are when we go out and about. It's like you got to find that neutrality. You got to find that sort of space of nothingness, and to identify with, the experience of, connecting with nature and looking at the beauty in life, looking at the details, paying attention to the roses, the flowers, the ocean. And I know it's difficult when we pay attention to the sky, because we see and we are reminded of what we're dealing with, but then let that be a catalyst of how important it is that we become empowered and we become authentic and genuine, and we don't look outside of ourselves for approval or to fit in, or we don't run away from society because we're so offended by it that we need to be outcasts and be, angry and bitter. So whatever end of the spectrum a person's on, when they're in that position of transitioning into feeling more grounded and okay just to do daily tasks, just, look at it, I look at it like I'm just visiting, kind of like a time traveler, like, okay, this is interesting. Just, I assess the situation. I might, notice something, and I'm kind of gauging it, looking behind it, what's the... Who's behind that? Is it a soul? Is it a programming? Is it a heartfelt person? Is it propaganda? Or is it a good, product that actually can heal? And I just try and use my intuition to say, okay, well, that person might be wearing a mask, but they have a great heart. Or, this person might look like they're higher consciousness, but they're completely corrupt and they're doing things that really go against their teachings. Don't look at the outside, just feel into what's behind it, and then you'll have discernment, and you'll notice that all sorts of things jump out all the time that resonate with us. But we got to drop feeling like whatever we see on the outside determines whether we should give it the time of day. Because masks are masks, and you can, think that you're meeting somebody that knows all about spirit, and they don't really. And then somebody who, just looks like your everyday Joe, might have the most amazing story ever. So if we can drop all the superficials, I think we can really navigate and find all sorts of synchronicities and all sorts of amazing things happening, while we start to let go of attaching ourselves to the things that trigger us or offend us. And we can just kind of, move through it that much quicker, or notice it and send it a positive energy and send it, some compassion. And, that's what I recommend.
What do you guys feel about the saying, ask and ye shall receive? I mean, I know that I've used that myself, and I do on a very regular basis, and I always receive in some form or fashion. But as far as, and this was a big help for me when I, back in the early 2000s, when I really started seeing the darkness and the depth of the darkness that was out there. I was damn near paralyzed as far as moving in the world. I was like, oh my God, which way do I go? And so I started using that ask and you shall receive type thing for messages and some direction in my life. And it seemed to help me. And I'm just curious on what you guys feel about, accessing that aspect of our beings and how we see those things manifest for us in real life.
Well, I mean, what we're talking about here is energy. Everything's energy. So this ask and you shall receive, of course it works because the person is focusing their energy on what it is they desire. So they're putting an emotional connection and an energetic, we're all beacons of energy. So their beacon is putting this energy out there. And that can be, literally going up to someone and asking, or through prayer, or just asking Source or the universe for, whatever it is. And I think it's great for us to be that focused and to back in the day before so many people became conscious and aware, it was just you take what you get. You don't ask for anything because you're in reaction mode. I'm going to react to what comes to me, not realizing that in those moments you were still manifesting it, but through your programming, through your conditioning, through whatever filters you have. I call that the default setting, where you're manifesting, attracting, and bringing things into your life, but you don't understand that that's what you're doing, and it's not quite from the clarity of who you are. And so ask and you shall receive, focusing your intention, and then being open to that actually happening or something better, knowing that you do play a role, but there's a lot of other variables in this. But I've always said, if you don't ask, you're never going to know, and you're never going to see it really manifest, because on some level we're asking by wherever it is, we're holding our energetic, imprint.
And I'd just like to add, and I love what you just said, being consistent too. Our words, carry the tones of our intentions, but if we tend to undermine ourselves or cut ourselves off from feeling like we can manifest what we ask for, then we carry that tone, we carry that energy, and every word that we speak is going to keep reinforcing it. And it's also beyond our voice, it's our actions, it's the way we work energy with others. You have to really have confidence in yourself and to not fix it to a certain form either, and know that if your words match the intention, and if you speak and empower it through owning it, it doesn't have any choice but to manifest. And so we have to be very careful with the things we say. A lot of people say, oh, I'd really love that, but I can't because of this, or yeah, that sounds really nice, but that could never happen for me, or just the whole kind of inner conversation that tends to just cut us off from the roots of what we came here to share and manifest. So we just have to stay very consistent with it and make sure that our words are more connected to our intention. Our thoughts are going to go all over the place, but be careful with the words, because the words start to really ground things in reality.
Very good point.
That reminds me of a conversation I had on Tuesday with a friend of mine, and we were talking about how, it's not our job to wake other people up, and it's not our job to say, hey, open your conscious, open your mind. But then we were discussing that, and we were talking about a friend of mine who, for example, he grew up in New York and always wanted to do these different things. So, for example, he came up to me and he was like, I wish I could be like you. And when he said that to me, it really kind of blew my mind. And I was like, what do you mean? He says, well, you just get up and go and travel. And at that time I had just got up and left and came to Japan just to travel for a couple months with really no money in my pocket. And I was like, okay, let's look at this. And I said, how's your business going? And he says, I don't have one. I work for a job. I said, okay, so that's the same as me. How's your kids? I don't have any kids. Okay. What about your wife? What would she think? I'm not married. So I said, how are we different? and then he just like changed the conversation and walked away from that. And the whole point I'm bringing this up, because at that moment, you know, if I go up to the guy who's satisfied with not traveling and seeing the world for what it is, and he's happy, just content right in the same neighborhood where he's been all his life, that's one thing. But then to have on the other side this person who's telling me these things, I feel like it's a cry out for help or a push or something.
Well, people love to put other people on a pedestal. You know, to me, he was putting you on the pedestal, like, wow, look, you can do this, but I can't. You've got some special whatever that I don't have. I don't have that available. And so, you know, it's just another way of a person limiting themselves and not seeing the true potential in everything. And it's up to us then to help people understand, you know, particularly those of us in positions of, you know, assisting others and everything, to make it clear that you know, if like, I make it real clear when I'm out there and in my outreach that if I've been able to do something that someone has been able to identify, someone looking at me and saying, wow, look at what you've accomplished or whatever, if I've been able to accomplish it, anyone can. It's not out of reach. I mean, I love it when I'm working on a new business or something and I see other people that have been successful in that business or with that business model. And I say, yes, that's awesome. I don't have to prove that it can be done. I can go do it. You know, there are other times where it's like, wow, no one's doing this and I am going to prove that it can be done, but I'm really just proving it to myself. You know, it's all what we decide and the energy that we're going to put in it. And you can hear it in people's voices, in their actions. You can see it in their eyes when they're just not ready to say, wow, I can do anything I believe I can do.
Yeah. So going back to something we were talking about, transmuting, can you guys give us an example of how you've transmuted something in your own personal life?
Yeah, I mean, that's like, whoa, which day, which month, which year? It's like, I know that I'd absolutely be dead, because it's like, okay, I remember just being in the thick of like just unbelievable attacks and just unbelievable experiences, and just reminding myself like, oh my God, there's no option except for alchemy. You can transmute it. And in those moments, I'm like, that's all you got. You know, you have nothing else. Nobody's going to help you right now. And there's no kind of outer solution except for what's inside of you and how you can work the energy. And I think, you know, just the best example I can give is, you know, just living on the road for a long time, and you know, how just difficult that can be at times, you know. And I was a single mother of twins, and sometimes we were just in very difficult situations, and I could take the perspective of, you know, panic and we're screwed and all this kind of stuff, and really feel, you know, just the situation, you know, taking a downward turn even more than before, and recognizing that, wait a second, that's my perception, and then instantly just shifting the whole energy and seeing it through a different lens, and recognizing that perceptions and thought forms are like timelines. You know, some are going to come and go and not hold real ground and get grounded, and it will just be more like a passing cloud. But some things end up being stronger than that. You can call them belief systems, but on the other side of belief systems, there's knowingness. There's being so in touch with your internal truth and what you're made of, that there's a confidence that comes from that. And we keep moving through all these layers until we hit the gold, and then it's like our natural energy is really bliss and inspiration and wisdom and love and all these different things that know exactly how to cope with any situation. So we have to pay attention to our perspectives in the moment. It's like a homeless person. You can have your hand out and begging, you know, for help and being the victim and being down and out. And, you know, I'm not saying that everybody holds that mentality and they don't have the right to. You know, they're in a process, and wherever they are, they need, you know, perhaps to be there. But you could take somebody else that has just as little belongings, has no home, has no real outlook or job or anything like that, and they could be sitting there in their light body, pulling things out of thin air and manifesting all sorts of things because of what they're owning on the inside. There's two different perspectives that are at the most polar extreme of each other, and then there's all sorts of things in between. And when we reach sort of that balance, and we're able to be grounded and expanded, and we're able to bring in our higher consciousness into the physical plane, we can transmute all sorts of things and heal things and regenerate things. But if we're too much in the ground, you know, we're going to feel the suffering and the enslavement. If we're too high in the air, we're going to lose our footing and we're going to be not in our bodies. So once we find that balance and we trust ourselves and we keep reinforcing the power that we're made of, and we use our minds as being the magical wand, choosing our thoughts, aligning our perceptions with the most ideal vision and dream, and we own that, it's like all sorts of things come out of our hand chakras, all sorts of things come out of our energy field, and it interacts with the elements and it interacts with our physical environment, and it changes things. This is what alchemy is. And at any moment we have that option.
You know what, from the grand perspective, much more of humanity are transmutation masters than they know or than they recognize, okay? Think about it. Reality is not just a cakewalk, okay? It's sort of a tough thing. And, you know, we get up every single morning and we approach our day, and depending on where your awareness is and where your consciousness is, you're either approaching it head on, knowing that you're going to run into your triggers, your fears, your insecurities, your bliss, your love space, your heart space, and others just knowing that the day, or believing that the day isn't in your control and that you're going to be put into a position to react to a lot of things, and that maybe you seriously feel in the core of your system that you are, you know, kind of the victim to the system, but you still go out there and you still approach the day and you tackle it and you are alive the next morning to do it all over again. That's a transmutation master, whether you know it or not. And if you're listening to this and it's clicking like, wow, maybe I am more powerful than I think, then step up to like what the next level of that is about. So take it, you know, like fully and be conscious and say, okay, yeah, Dr. Dream's got a point there. I've been the transmutation master every single day of my life, okay, and I'm still here to talk about it. Now I'm conscious and aware of it. How can I take it to the next level? How can I push the boundaries of what it means to be a human in this lifetime? How can I make the world a better place?
Right. Right. Yeah, one thing that so many people lose sight of is that, you know, we are creators, and there's so many people that will agree with this and they know that we're creators. You know, it's a knowing within themselves, but they don't the full knowing of that seems to slip by so many people. They don't understand that they're creators 100% of the time. And they're not just creators when they're in meditation or prayer or doing energy work or whatever. They're not just creators during those periods, but they're creators when they're walking across the street. They're creators when they're talking to their friend at work. They're creators when, I mean, everything that we do is a creative process, and we're constantly putting out and receiving energy from our environment, from our location, from where we're at in the cosmos. And I just see that as something that people let slip. And I know when I got to a certain point within myself where I fully knew that, wow, I'm a creator 100% of the time. Boy, I'll tell you what, I started throwing red flags up all over the place for Tom, because I was doing stuff that oops. You know, just what I say. And I had one of those, I threw a flag before we got the show started tonight, you know, with that one comment about when we were going to end. I was like, oh my God, Tom, where'd that come from?
Oh, that was funny.
You know, so I'm constantly throwing flags for myself, but it's a slow but steady process of bringing it into an alignment with where I want to go with my life, and what I want to be able to accomplish with my life is to be one of those people that are going out there and sharing and spreading and doing good, in at least my interpretation of what good is. And I think that realization of being a creator 100% of the time was a huge catalyst for me.
Oh, that's awesome. And this is what mind control is all about, because it disempowers us. It creates a different operational system. that acts like our parents acted, that carries on ancestral patterns and programmings from religion and government and all sorts of things. So a lot of times, we're creating from that program. And I know we talked about that earlier versus, well, what does it mean for me? What is my truth? And giving ourselves, that extra push to just say, I don't have to do it the way that has been done before. I don't have to, mimic what I saw on the TV. I don't have to act like my friends act. It's like just really being true to the self is where we step into that ultimate I am creator self instead of, enabling the programmings and enabling the ancestral patterns to continue.
Right. Oh, so, how about we head off in another direction here now? So you've got this retreat coming up here at the end of the month at ECETI. What are you guys going to be covering in that?
Well, the title of the weekend is pushing. Gosh, what is it?
Pushing the envelope of our divinity.
Yes.
Not pushing the buttons, but.
And this is really going to be a wonderful experience for us. This is our first Laura and Dr. Dream retreat weekend that we've done. We just couldn't have come together better than with James Gilliland and the team up there at ECETI Ranch, and the location and just everything. We picked a weekend that is a new moon. And so that means we've got 3 nights of the most amazing night sky watch available, and then we have a great schedule of presentations and stuff. I'll be doing for the first time my presentation on the Practical Ascension, the Lost User's Guide. And I'm really excited about it. It's so relaxed, it's so fresh, it's so beautiful up there. And it's a manifestation area, Tom. We all have talked about this. I mean, big things happen up there. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to start any rumors or anything, or just throw words out like the mothership or anything like that. But it really just depends on the energies that show up, because it's a collective energy that we're going to create. But we're going to create and manifest and attract some amazing experiences that weekend. Laura, tell us what you're going to be talking about.
Well, I've got some great updates based on Captain K coming into our lives. We really have covered a lot of ground that helped to connect some dots, continuing with really the structure that I've always kind of focused in on, which is how to really connect the dots of all levels of our being, to recognize that we are multidimensional beings, but we need to have all of ourselves activated and not just parts of ourselves. It can't just be the mind and the information. It can't just be the energy. There's a package here, and there's, mythologies that connect to geology, that connects to astrology, which connects to physics, which connects to quantum science, and, all these incredible things, Keylontic science, and the treaties, and extraterrestrials, and just all these different things that have happened throughout our ancient galactic history up until now, timelines and technologies and spiritual development and soulful development, the masculine and feminine, sacred union. So, I mean, the list is endless. So my structure is usually how to consolidate all of this and put it into something that can help us to feel more whole and less scattered. Because the thing is, if we compartmentalize ourselves too much and we put our attention over here and over there and we don't see how the two connect, it's just as difficult as what it means to create well-being in the body. The liver and the heart need to be resonant with each other. We have to have, a certain level of balance to be whole and to be healthy. So I look at it the same way when I present these things. So I'll be adding a dimension that has to do with Alternative 3 and where some of these artificial timelines, want to take us, and how they were created and where they come from, and how we can rise above it and to transmute it and to be the soul and global alchemists, and really to emerge into higher earth energies based on the inner work, and also refining the way that we relate to one another, and particularly calling out a lot of the different traps and agendas out there and the things that we want to be watchful of.
Oh wow, this sounds like a really fun weekend. I'm excited.
Now, just one other thing to add about the weekend. We'll be doing the Rose Frequency Galactivation out there. And our galactivation experience at this point, I pretty much consider to be open source. And so we'll have James and Nate and everyone participating, highly energetic, major movement of the etheric bodies. I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity for us to do the galactivation out there. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're all going to be so high.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, the rose frequency is the highest frequency essential oil. And it comes in at about 3.5 times, 350% of the average body frequency. And so we will be dousing people with rose oil, and just it's an energetic, and it's also it's such a high frequency that it's like asking you shall receive. You know, it's like going into the rose frequency galactivation, being focused on the rose frequency as that highest frequency that we can connect with easily outside of ourselves, gives it even that much more of a boost. And we have people going into different types of release. We've had people like laughing. We've had people crying. I mean, literally wailing, because as we move into these higher frequencies, it really repels some of the lower frequency things that we're holding on to. And so it's a beautiful experience. It's a multiple modality experience. Laura and I facilitate it, and there's crystal bowls and chimes and bioenergetic lasers and essential oils and flower and gem essences and gongs and tuning forks and who knows what else.
Oh, this is going to be good. I can feel it already. So I'm going to go off into a segue into something else real quick here. You know, we recently interviewed a guy by the name of Scott Lemrel, and he talked about a race of beings that have just recently basically awoken back to this galaxy, and that they were
ancient ones.
They were some of the how did they term that, Ramon? Some of the original seeders of the planet, or of this galaxy, is what the way you termed it. But they've been reactivated basically by Source to straighten out some of their creation, to you know, put back into balance some things that have been knocked out of balance. And I guess I'll put this out there as kind of a broad question on those different energies and forces that are at play in the greater cosmos, and maybe focusing here on planet Earth in an attempt to rebalance the out of kilter system that we have here right now. Have either of you sensed anything that is different, or a new energy or a new entity or entities out there that have put their joined the fray, so to say?
Well, I mean, I think I see the whole creation like a big organism. You know, just we have founder races, and we have fallen races, you know, fallen angelics, and different scenarios that have happened that, you know, have created a lot of mixing of these different groups, hybridization and infiltrations and planets being taken over, and the development of the gray ETs, and then the automations and the EBEs, and you name it. And so we're dealing with all kinds of things when we look at who our founders are. You know, our DNA has been tampered with and manipulated. It's been seeded and developed as well by higher extraterrestrials, tampered with by, of course, lower ones. And a lot of times, you know, when humanity was seeded, it was considered an experiment, and sometimes those experiments didn't really work. And so a second creation would happen, or a second seeding would happen. And so, you know, when we look at, well, are beings coming back that feel responsible, that are trying to fix things? Well, on a very multidimensional level, yes, and on many different timelines, yes. But we're dealing with a lot of different species, a lot of different seedings, and a lot of different storylines based on the different timelines and the different choices and thought forms that have manifested out of the primordial sea of chaos. I mean, there's so much more going on than what we visually see, that it's not just this isolated 3D reality that's getting assistance and these new beings are coming in. We're dealing with, you know, all sorts of dimensions and life forms, you know, in these other dimensions, and ones that definitely have a lot of attention here. There are some beings from other universes coming in just as much as there's ones that are connected to factions of the Anunnaki or the founder races that are like, wow, okay, you know, we have to fix this because they initiated a certain level of experimentation along the way that ended up, you know, somewhat failing. But the amount of disagreements and the amount of different things, the amount of, you know, treaties that have been worked with to agree upon certain things changed over time. And certain races would say, no, I don't agree with this anymore, but only a few would. Those ones have come back to try and help as well because they stepped out of the whole thing or seeing the damage that's being done. So we got to look at it like the human body, you know, with good bacteria, bad bacteria, with the immune system and with the parasites. We're always in a battle when we sense what's going on inside of our own bodies. If we jump inside of our own bodies, we're going to feel like we're in a war zone, and we're probably going to see a lot of things that are out of balance. But when we tune into the higher consciousness of ourself and we find balance and harmony with the energetic of it all, then everything comes back into order within the body. And the battles are, you know, more about recycling and regeneration, gobbling up the things that need to die and regenerating new life. And the dark and light work together in a very appropriate way, versus the dark forces having control over the light that is suppressing the light, that's throwing things out of balance, which causes the parasites to win. So now it's like the immune system's been activated on the planet, and all these different races and beings are coming in, and that's what's getting online. And what's happening right now is that we're noticing that there's more of a boost because people are awakening, and the minute people awaken, just like in their human body, they boost their own immune system. On a more global level, we start to invoke and we start to, you know, contact these other beings that are just waiting for our attention so that we can see that we're actually all connected. And what happens down here affects what happens up there, and as above, so below as well. And we're all connected to all of this. So every time we make a choice to raise our vibration or to let go of something, we are acting as that agent of the immune system. And every time we buy into the agendas and we enable the dark forces, we act as the parasite. And so every single one of us has a choice to be one or the other. The more we're over the tipping point and people start to awaken, the more we're going to find that these new beings and old beings and beings from other universes are like, hey, we're here to help, but yet we're part of you, so we're not rescuing you. We're just helping you to validate what you're being willing to see in yourself.
Wow.
You know, I guess probably my biggest concern right now with where we're at on the planet is that I really love planet Earth. I mean, I absolutely love this place. It is so freaking gorgeous. And there's such variety here. I mean, this is heaven. I mean, this place it's a garden. And I guess I've been concerned with some of the larger strokes that are being made out there by some of these less than palatable entities that have really mucked the place up. And I guess my biggest concern is that the reset button gets hit here, and we lose this gorgeous garden. And I mean, I'm not concerned for my soul or my spirit in any way, shape, or form. I know that if something like that does transpire, that I'll end up in some other place that's just perfect for me. But you know, I would hate to see all this place just go to hell. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that because we're all beacons, that, you know, one of our responsibilities is to, you know, if we have those concerns, and we all do to a certain extent as we look around and we see what we see, but then to really practice being the transmutation master with that, because we're not going to be able to shift this holding on to like the deeper seated stuff. I think that part of us realizing how powerful we are as individuals is then, you know, leading us to realizing how powerful we are as a collective of focused, aware, and conscious individuals together. And that's where the hope and the belief and the knowing of what we can truly transmutate, happens for me. I mean, and so as I look around and I see people waking up and stepping into their role, and more people stepping into the healing arts and this and that, I'm so grateful because it's happening, and yeah, it's not going to be everybody, but let's just everyone sort of step in and support each other out of those deep-seated fears, because it's served us to this point, but I'm not so sure that on into where we're headed that those fears need to be. I think that's just baggage we don't need.
Right.
Yeah. And plus, this third density is like a holding tank for souls to have the free will to decide where they want to go with it all, and there's a bifurcation of sorts happening. I know a lot of people talk about it, but, the way I see it is, the choice is to get further immersed in the artificial matrix and to become a part of sort of that artificial intelligence system, or to move into the higher earth energies. And then there's we might all be wiped out and there might be like none of us. Well, we wake up somewhere. We always end up somewhere. Well, what about planet Earth? What happens to her? Well, because we're in a kind of a holding tank scenario, just to allow souls this process, which of course is being attacked, but it's through the attacks sometimes that we end up waking up. So we can't really separate ourselves from it, or we wouldn't be alchemists. But when you see kind of what ends up splitting off is sort of this phantom Earth that is sort of like a dead planet. It can only live on technology, and it can only live on sort of this elitist mentality that has basically killed it and puts it on a life support system. And everybody who's connected to it is not even soulful. There's no real connection to the land anymore. And so the land is gone, the soul is gone, and it's just, these elitists who have a society that's basically a slave society that gives them everything they want. But that's just one scenario. That's not the real Earth. The real Earth is always going to be alive. This planetary body is made of a star, a Merkaba, a 13-dimensional energy that makes it an ascending planet. So whatever ends up falling away is like, basically dead weight anyway. And what continues to live on is the one thing that can never be killed to begin with, which is the spirit of this planet and whatever it chooses to dream. And even if the actual physical planet changes, the energy and the consciousness of this great planet, of the goddess, and the spirit that it comes from is always going to be alive, and it'll always be creating. So as long as we stay in touch with that, we're going to go for a wild ride, and we might be pollen along the way, reseeding ourselves somewhere else, but that spirit never dies. The only thing that's going to turn this place to hell is going to be when that aspect of the planet is running on an artificial system, and it's only a small portion of her body, a part of her she doesn't even need anymore, because it has lost connection to the spirit that this planetary body is made of. So it's just sort of like, dead on an artificial system, like we see in the hospitals. And it's basically, you can pull the plug and that thing would probably go up in smoke, because it's all about the artificial intelligence technologies and transhumanism at that point.
That was very well put. Thank you.
Sure.
That was good job. So, it appears to me that, we are some amazing and powerful beings, and I know that when, there's that saying, when two or more are gathered, I'm in their midst, right? We've struggled in the woo-woo fields, in the consciousness fields, in the awakening or the ascension genres. We've struggled with getting collective efforts moving. And a lot of this has to do with the tight range that are on the media system, and how what we're limited to as far as how we get information out to the masses. We really have no direct access to the masses, except for hoping that they are lucky enough to stumble upon our websites or something on the internet for us. I guess the question I have out of this is what are our prospects for getting some collective mass effort or focus in play on the planet to really make some dramatic change?
Let's not forget. I mean, what's the name of your radio show?
Oh, exactly. 100th
So
Radio.
It's not about communicating in the channels that are like the conventional channels. I mean, yeah, that helps, absolutely. But let's remember, we are these beacons, and if the energetic that we're transmitting as individual beacons of energy, is all about being empowered, is all about being connected to the deepest, most sacred aspects of love, is all about expansion, is all about compassion, and we are just, being the beacon of that energy out into the ether, it's being felt by everybody. And it may just be that enough of us being the conscious beacon, sometime during the day or every time we think about it, that's going to be enough to tip the scale, or to have that one other person just be like, have the aha moment. We don't know what really creates that aha moment, but maybe it's, these energy fields just going around this entire planet. That's the power that we have. And the other stuff, let Murdoch and all those people control the media and everything else. They can't control what I'm an energetic beacon of.
Right, and the thing is, like, we see these secret societies, we see these shadow governments, we see things that are trying to run the show that have basically socially engineered everybody and have kept people locked into the fear cycles of what shows up in the news and how our energies sink when we see a tragedy, and how people are so plugged into it all that their every day is based on, what they saw on television or what they read in the paper or what they're being fed. And it's just interesting because when one thinks about what's actually producing that sort of mentality, well, the light workers, the truth tellers, the people that are really here to awaken things, that have come to Earth specifically for this reason, are also like the CIA, but without the corruption. It's like being the all-seeing eye without the corruption, being the unconditional love source that can help empower people not to be under a certain level of control, but to be on a path of sovereignty and freedom and liberation and finding the truth within the self. There's plenty of people holding that space in the same way that there's plenty of people holding the space to continue to program and control. So the minute a person has that flash or insight, then, they're now functioning on a different level. And so a lot of us, we're all powerful beings, but some of us are being called to hold a certain level of power until people catch on. And they're trying to take everybody away from it and kind of hijack them and kidnap them into another agenda. But this is how the seeding happens, and there's different creator gods involved, different factions, but ultimately it comes from the one source. And if we can identify all these different archetypes and bring them into harmony within ourselves, without the blame and the fragmentations that keep all these different factions alive and all these different cliques and groups and mindsets and belief systems, then that wholeness will activate other people, that they don't have to just get information and believe it. They get an activation to feel into their body what the truth is, versus, being convinced that, Satan is here on Earth in a form of other people worshiping them, and it's a satanic cult that's our government instead of anybody here to help us. We don't want to get people through the mind, we want to get them through the soul, and that's what many of us are holding space for.
That's a good point. It's I don't know. I guess maybe the gateway has to be through the mind, though. In some situations, I'm sure it comes in every form you can possibly think of.
But if it's delivered through the heart, then the mind will open. But if it's all about the battle of who's crazy and who's not, it's just the mental looping happens. But if the heart is engaged and there's compassion and understanding how this information is so hard to assimilate, the heart energy will find more ease and more comfort and more trust with that individual, so that when they share the information, they can be open to it rather than suspicious.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, it's a very, very good point.
And also, when you think about it, to try and get a grip on the experience of being human and reality and everything else, and to bring it into a rational, thought process, how is that even possible?
Hey, exactly.
Exactly. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. There's so many of these concepts that are well, almost all of it is really, words do not do justice. But one thing I do have to say about what's going on right now on the planet is that we've got some amazing people, you two included, that are doing a fantastic job of relaying these concepts with words in a way that if people actually listen and ponder what's being said, they can actually find some amazing things within themselves. So I think we're doing quite well on the planet for getting the information out there in a way that is never before seen on this planet in our history, at least in the history that we're aware of, in such a layman's term that anybody can listen to, ponder, and understand. So, fantastic work.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That's nice.
So where to, Ramon?
So I was wondering about, when we're doing something and we're in the moment of doing whatever it may be, whether it's washing the dishes, meditating, or on the way to work, and finding that right moment or frequency to be in. I think I worded that kind of difficult. How to always be in that moment, because it's one of those things that I find that it's like, wearing these huge shoes on a very tiny string. So the shoes can very easily go one way or the other, very easy, and the string is so thin to keep that balance. Do you guys understand what I mean? Or did I?
Yeah. I think what you mean is, in the moment, how can you stay centered in yourself so that you can respond to everything that's coming at you or everything that's going on around you in a way that doesn't fall into a trap or into a lower mindset? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Dream, you want to take that, or you'd like me to go?
Go ahead, Laura, and then I'll chime in.
Well, this is what's so amazing about the minute we wake up in the morning and every moment between then and when we go to bed is we get a chance to really refine these abilities and really to pay attention to what's going on around us. Similar to what we were talking about with physical symptoms and things going on with our health. Well, how we relate to the world is very similar to how the body relates to what we put in it. So we want to always, be paying attention to, like every time I get triggered, which is quite a bit, I'm very honest about it. I'm like, oh, it's bringing up guilt in me. I got to clear that. Or, so something happens and I'm like, wow, that's bringing up, some wound from, my mother. I could come up with all these examples, but I don't want people to think, oh, is that what's going on in her life? I'm just coming up with examples. So, and there probably are going on in my life. But the whole point is, it's like in that moment, you just kind of like look at it and you see it for what it is. And it's like, you kind of hold space for it and pay attention to the words coming out and the reactions coming out and just, take a deep breath and do your best to just approach it from the desire to create harmony, to create understanding and cooperation and good feelings in others while still being able to get your point across. Because I think we're always challenged in how we handle our power and our energy, or how we feel disempowered. And there's insecurity, and then there's humility, and then there's arrogance, and then there's confidence. How can we just be confident and humble without the other stuff? That's a deeper expression. So we want to be humble, but we want to be strong and confident in who we are. And so when we address things that are coming at us, we want to be true and authentic and genuine about what it does to us without, pulling it apart and psychoanalyzing it. But, taking responsibility for where we slip up, knowing we're not going to be perfect, knowing how to say you're sorry, and just, continually practicing how to best use our power. Because we're going to feel the need to stand our ground, and we're going to feel the need to kind of sit back a little bit and let somebody else present ideas. And we're always going to be in this balancing act. So the best thing we can do is be as honest to each other and ourselves as possible, so that we're not losing ourselves with the acting it out, or the ego reaction, or the how can I sting you, or how can I hurt you, or how can I make my point by making you feel less than so I have control over you. It's dropping all that and just being real is what I would say.
I love it. I love that. And it's a great question, because it's like on the subway, in a store, in a meeting, driving on a crowded freeway, they all require different energies and different kind of grounding or protection, or just how we hold ourselves. But all it brings us back to is not is to just be like in that moment and to be aware of what we're choosing in that moment. And so, I love it because it's us. It's me when I'm out there. Yes, some things are a lot more comfortable for me than others, but it's always me, and I'm always okay. And for, the majority of my life, I've consciously known that I live in a safe universe. And I carry that with me wherever I go. And when I show up someplace where there's some energies around me I don't quite understand, but I'm not feeling comfortable or whatever it is, my fallback is always me, who I truly am, and finding that right there in the moment, I can handle anything. But if in that moment I allow myself to own something that's not truly me, not truly my nature, I slip into a trigger, I slip into whatever it is that takes me out of being present in myself, that's when the default settings kick in. That's when, there's cracks in the foundation and all of a sudden the insecurities maybe like, oh, wow, what's happening now in this meeting? I didn't think this person was going to be here, or whatever it is, and just allowing that to take over. But in that same moment, we can put a stop to it and we can say, whoa, wait a sec, I'm constricting. This has become uncomfortable for me. Fallback position, circle the inner wagons, so to speak. And whatever it is for you is to just kind of own that energetic or that perspective.
Subject or sovereign?
Yeah.
Are you a subject or are you sovereign?
Yeah.
I guess that's what I mean, and this is what you guys have been talking about here tonight is all. It keeps screaming in my head. This is sovereignty. This is what true sovereignty is owning yourself, and being aware of yourself and realizing that you are that creator that is creating your experience. I mean, despite even regardless of all the things that we see when we look out the door of those shadows, for lack of a more appropriate term, those shadows that are flitting around outside in the world and that look ugly to us. I look at those things as a silver lining, and we kind of alluded to this earlier, that these types of events, the 911s, the Sandy Hooks, the Arab Springs, all these different things are catalysts to wake people up. There are some really amazing things that are coming out of these really nasty events that I have to be grateful for on one hand. On the other hand, I'm kind of appalled on some of these things, but on one hand, I go, wow, click, 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 how many people just woke up after that one?
Right, and in what kind of way, too, because everybody kind of wakes up differently. It's interesting.
Exactly. Some people take a 2x4. Some people take a feather. And from what I've seen, it looks like most people need a 2x4. But hopefully we're moving towards the feather days. Yeah, all it takes is a little tickle, and the mind starts going, and the soul engages, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to not wait for anything to happen, to give yourself permission to feel liberated and, healthy and whole in the now. And when we own it, it's like everything else catches up with it, even if it's not quite there yet. If we wait for something to happen later on, or we go into the past because of something we did, we can't take advantage of the healing energies that are right here, right now, to take us exactly where we want to be.
That's the if-then loop. If that happens, then I'll do this. And it ends up being exactly that, a loop. And if you find yourself in it, you've got to get yourself out of it. Otherwise, it's just always going to be that way, and you'll never get to the then aspect of your experience.
Good point.
Very good point, yeah. One of the things I find really amazing is even in the major media, like with TV shows and things like that, there's always little diamonds that are dropped. And even if you go back to, some ways to watch some of the older shows that you liked, and you would hear something or watch something that you're like, wow, that person, whoever wrote that, really knew something. Or was onto something. And I find that that's always been there. And, you know, the more exposed we get to these kind of energies and way of thinking, the easier it is to see those things that you missed as a kid or as a young adult when you watch those programs. And I feel like there's something or groups of people who are always dropping little things, like, because I've noticed, at least for myself and for many people, when you're not ready for something, if you're just throwing that out in your face, you're not going to pay attention to it. But if it's brought to you in a story or in an idea, and it's not really in your face, it'll germinate later.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like a symptom of expanded awareness and consciousness is you start to notice the messages everywhere. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the more enlightened, so to speak, that we get, the more we'll realize that everything's a synchronicity. But think about it in the big picture. Of course everything's a synchronicity because on some level we're bringing it about. But think about once we get to that level of perspective that we can actually see that happening. And I think as we're expanding, we're starting to see it everywhere, you know, and at a certain point we'll be able to look at anyone's actions and see through them into the truth and the true nature of reality, no matter who the person is or what they're doing or how it's showing up. I think it's everywhere, and we're just kind of still filtering most of that out.
I mean, we're peeling down all the different layers to get to the core truth that's within every being. You know, they just might be buried in all sorts of stuff. And as long as we're holding on to the stuff, that's all we're going to see. But when we go deeper, we're going to see that depth reflected. Just like pregnant women notice pregnant women, insecure people see people looking at them weird, confident people see people smiling. You know, whatever you're holding on to is what you tend to see outside of you, more so than everything outside of us is a reflection of who we are, because I don't think that we're chemtrails, personally. You know, but I see it as a catalyst to help us shift so that our outer reflection can bring forth the synchronicities that help us to find those of truly like mind and resonance, which will ripple out and help activate everybody else.
Yeah. It's a very good point. Tom?
Yeah, I was just trying to muffle my phone. Well, okay, yeah, that kind of threw me off. So, I suppose let's go into this. Laura, I know that you have got your finger on the pulse of the astrology end of things and paying attention to the energies that are in our local solar system and how they're influencing us here. I'm just curious, I know we're under the influence of this Grand Cross right now. I'm curious of what we have left in store for us for the rest of this year.
Well, I mean, there's a lot happening. My goodness, where to begin? Well, Jupiter's going to be moving into Leo, and that's just sort of nice because Leo's all about our creative energy. You know, the whole year I don't have fully mapped out because I kind of go week by week, but the general picture is that, you know, all sorts of things are going to be shifting as far as very soon the Saturn-Scorpio energy is going to change, and Mars is moving out of Libra. So we're going to notice that Mars moving into Scorpio is going to put a lot of enhancement on the Saturn-Scorpio aspect, which means that the energy of Saturn, which is all about limitation and discipline, is not going to be about the outside authorities or the outside institutions and false structures that dictate to us what we need to do, because everything Scorpio and Pluto is all about transformation, and we're heavily working with the Capricorn-Saturn energy, with Pluto also in Capricorn. So a big emphasis on the Saturn-Scorpio energies. And what does that mean? That the old paradigm is dying and something new is being birthed, but the foundation isn't being thrown away necessarily. Because Saturn's like the skeletal system, and it rules things like grass growing and hair growing, and it also is the ruler of time. But we're knocking out the stuff that has distorted time and has taken it away from being in rhythm with nature. And we're bringing it back to the understanding of things like the 13-moon calendar, which we don't have to look on the wall and look at the day. It's something so natural within us. It's just being in sync with nature. And we're going to notice that Saturn, instead of being the controller, is going to become our own personal self-authority. And that's part of the rebirth we're all going through for the next year, is to recognize that inner authority and that inner empowerment. And then with all these different things going on with Uranus and Pluto activating us, it'll give us all the crises and all the wake-up calls we could possibly need, as long as we can perceive it as such, we will be able to move through it in a pretty accelerated way. But as long as we fall into the lower density reaction, we're going to still be challenged with how to work with what power means, what authority means, and what governments and religions and all these, even New Age stuff means. And it's still the externalization of authority. So this is a big year for people to say, hey, wait a second, I'm going to go inside and I'm my own authority and come from that place. So everything's going to be promoting that this year. And then Jupiter and Leo is going to create a lot more lightness in our beings as far as what we're being willing to create and being more self-expressive and, more in that inner child fun and returning to that divine innocence and inner child. Right now we're Jupiter and Cancer. We're facing a lot of our mother issues and the need for nurturing others and being nourished. But the birthing is going to take us right into the inner child and, the newborn feeling of innocence again.
Oh, geez. I am so looking forward to the rest of this year myself personally. I just have really good feelings about what's happening on the planet. Even when I look out and, we've done some shows recently we did a couple shows on chemtrails and looking at some of the more unsavory aspects of what's going on out there on the planet, and which kind of took me down a couple of notches, but when I look at the whole picture and look at what's going on overall on the planet, I'm really getting excited about the rest of this year into next year. I think 2015 is going to be an amazing year for us. I think, it's actually been talked about quite a bit about the 2015 through 2020 time period being absolutely an amazing unfoldment on this planet. So I'm very optimistic and very looking forward to it. It's almost like I'm kind of grateful that time is flying by right now. I just want it to slow down when we get to the really good part.
Right? Yeah.
Wait, this isn't the good part?
Oh, well, you know what I mean.
Totally know what you mean.
When I don't have to, look out at that stuff.
Totally.
So, any amazing encounters or communications recently on either of yours parts? Unexpected visits from our friends out there in the galaxy or anything along those lines recently?
To be quite honest, I have been between the Cardinal Grand Cross and everything this year. It's my focus has really been inside me and just clearing out what is the divine timing, for me to be ready to clear out and embracing what needs to be embraced. And so that's been happening a lot. It seems that's been my focus. So nothing big to report outside of me. Huge things to report on the inner journey.
Oh,
same. Yeah, I mean, I'm a very inward person, and I find it's like a portal into just kind of like these other dimensions and realms. I mean, I'm a big astral sort of etheric journeyer. I go into all sorts of dimensions. I got to get grounded. So, I'm pulling myself in. I got a lot of energy out there, just kind of looking over my shoulder, sort of, and that's kind of how I've always been since I was a kid, just being very much in this sort of outer landscape, but entering it through going inside myself, through the heart, through the soul, as a portal into what is beyond that. But it doesn't help me to be grounded at all. So this has been a huge time for me to be grounded. And I would say, I have to say, beings, I just feel more of a reflection of what's inside, the Christ consciousness, the goddess energy, which is inside of everybody. So when I say that, I mean it's in everyone. But I'm seeing more of a reflection of it in my world, which feels like, okay, this is exactly where I want to go. And all the different spirit guides and energies that are a part of that vibration, I just feel supporting me. I just feel protected. I feel, I get knocked down a lot and I have a very difficult time in moments, but it's like there's something that helps me to bounce back. And then, I always try and reinforce that, people, just really work well together so that we can help hold that sacred space for each other. And that's really been my focus.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and work on wrapping this stuff up now for the night. you have the event coming up here at ECETI. What else is going on for you guys the rest of the year?
We'll be in Laytonville in Mendocino County at Area 101 on July 30th and 31st. The evening event is July 30th. And we'll be doing the Rose Frequency Galactivation, actually an experience called Heart Speaks and the Rose Frequency Galactivation. Laura opens speaking for about an hour and a half, and then we galactivate together for about an hour and a half. And then Contact in the Desert at the Joshua Tree Retreat Center, August 8th, 9th, and 10th. A lot of big names there. We've got a couple of presentations, and Laura's got a workshop. Should be quite a good time. We'll be at the Star Knowledge Conference at the end of September in Nashville. Excited for that one also. And then we're just about ready to announce something in November in Florida once we just finalize the rest of the details. So we're looking at bringing things more, trying not to do as many events and figuring out how to do more effective outreach right from here so we can have more time with the kids and not spend so much energy adjusting to all the travels.
Right. You guys are still doing your sessions and everything though too, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Dream Team Sessions, dreamteamsessions.com, and really powerful. We do them at all the events, and then people come from all over to Ventura for those sessions here at our center here.
Oh, cool. So the primary websites are the touroflove.com, Sophia, Gaia,
Gaia's, wait, what is it? CosmicGaiaSophia.com.
Cosmic Day, okay, yeah. And Awaken the Dream Radio, are there any others that I should be tagging onto this list?
Everything connects to everything, and so if people go to www.touroflove.com, it links to the Dr. Dream site, to the Laura site, to the radio site, to all the, the healing site, everything. And so, and we've got about 300 broadcasts on iTunes for Awaken the Dream Radio, and we've got a big week coming up. We've got a Wednesday and Thursday night this next week is all with Captain K. So two-part special with his information on Mars and Alternative 3 and being a super soldier. And, I mean, this is an incredible story.
Yeah. I've touched lightly on his material and in definitely going to be tuning in for that. So good stuff. So all right. Well, I want to thank both of you guys for joining us tonight, and I can't wait for the end of this month.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah, I want to see you guys.
Thank you.
Hey, there goes my phone again.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been so much fun to be on. It's always great to connect with you guys.
Yeah, we really love this. Ramon, I'm looking forward to you doing a little bit of bilocation so we can see you at the end of July. Never say never.
Yeah, I every time Tom goes up there, I work on it. So,
excellent. I mean, that's the place to make it happen.
Absolutely.
And Tom, it's going to be great to see you. It's been a while, and I can't wait to give you a hug.
All right, guys. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for listening tonight, and love you guys.
Love you.
Love you guys.
Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
Namaste, my
Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one that makes change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like I need live for peace. peace. Aspire to be someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King. Aspire to be that love, that light, like Christ, life for the moment indeed. And if you believe in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, Christian, it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score and maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing receive. Due to the media propaganda killing my creed. Or what don't kill me make me stronger, feeling straight when I bleed. Fighting for interest before it's attached to feet. They try to say you anything in this world, nothing for free. Land, air, fire, and water, they keep up in the ante while the anti-proletariats hold the powers that be. But we keep fighting, surviving and thriving, recycling and rhyming. We constantly inclining, we see through the lying and prying. They tactically keep trying to keep you from asking the why.
The change that you wanna see in the world, like Gandhi, live for peace. Aspire to be someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King. Aspire to be that love, that light, like Christ, life for the moment indeed. And if you believe in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, Christian, it's love to me.
We find solutions, different possibilities, creating organizations like Aspire to Be, inspiring young minds to see, building life skills, nurturing creativity, fulfilling the youth's basic needs, listening actively, teaching the tools to succeed, positive role models, we plant the seed, the roots drink the water which feed the trees, someone help me, giving back is my responsibility.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world, like Gandhi, live for peace. Aspire to be someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King. Aspire to be that love, that light, like Christ, life for the moment indeed. And if you believe in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha, Christian, it's love to me. Aspire to be the change you wanna see in the world. Aspire to be the change you wanna see in the world. Aspire to be, aspire to be, aspire to be the change you wanna see in the world. Aspire to be the change you wanna see in the world. Aspire to be the change you wanna see in the world. Aspire to be, aspire to be, aspire to be, aspire to be.